All right, everybody. Welcome to the Typical Sportsman podcast. We are here at the Pope and Young Convention, and we've got a brand new world record holder, Velvet Mountain Caribou, by none other than the legend himself, Mr. Tom Hoffman.
Great to be here.
We are going to have fun. I promise you guys. Tom's going to talk about his new world record, which was killed 35 years ago, but just now recognized as a new world record. He didn't even know it was a world record until yesterday, which is just incredible. He's going to share some of his most wild adventures, some of his hardest misses, some of his favorite shots he's ever made on animals. He's going to talk about some, let's just cut right to the chase. Some bowgasms that you might have in a tree stand.
Yeah, humor.
Humor. Hey, it's all right to laugh.
Humor's healthy.
We're here to have fun.
Hey, baby.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. This episode is brought to you by our good friends over at 2O. 2O was just introduced a couple years ago, and it has quickly become some of my favorite Western gear on the planet. Tonight's banquet, the Thursday night banquet, 2O is the title sponsor of it here at the Pope and Young Convention, so we're going to raffle off a couple full packages from 2O. Going to be exciting, getting ready for a good banquet, good auction tonight. But first, we got to hear from Tom on his new world record and some of his craziest, best adventures.
For the true sportsman, it's more than a pastime. It's a way of life. Embrace the lifestyle of hunting, fishing, and the thrill of the wild. Live the life. Be typical.
We talk a lot about our favorite bows, about our favorite camo, our favorite arrows, and we invest a lot of money into the gear that we use. Listen, that investment does not matter if you're not healthy enough to get out in the woods. That investment of your camo does not matter if you can't make it up the mountain to where the elk are. One of the best investments you can make is investing in your health, investing in the longevity of you as a hunter. Guys, Mountain Tough is truly changing lives of people all around the world. It's changed my life. It's changed lives of people like Mr. Randy Newberg. His testimony about Mountain Tough is absolutely phenomenal. He's even partnered with them to help make a program for people 50 and over because he's so passionate about what it's done for him in his life. Guys, Mountain Tough truly is incredible. And I want to give you a chance to try it for 6 weeks completely free. When you use the code TYPICAL, all caps, typical, you're going to get the original 14 days free. But then you're also going to get an additional 30 days free. 6 weeks of free training. Give it a shot, give it a try, and just see. I promise you in that 6 weeks, you'll feel better, you'll perform better, you'll look better. Everything about your life will improve if you just give it a chance. If you don't like it at the end of that 6 weeks, no harm, no foul. But I want to give you a chance to try it free for 6 weeks. Again, Mountain Tough, use code TYPICAL, all caps, and try it for 6 weeks completely free. All right, we've got Mr. Tom Hoffman. How are you,
Happy
man?
to be here.
Absolutely.
I'm happy to be here no matter where here is.
But it's even better when it's at the Pope and Young Convention.
Oh, it's like going to a class reunion.
It is. You get to see all your friends.
Oh.
How many in a row conventions is this for you?
Well, actually, I missed the last convention.
Shame on
It's
you.
the first one I've missed since, I think, 1987 or something like that.
Wow.
I love it. It's, there's just so many great guys here.
Yep.
Bow hunters, for the most part, are just so, they tell it like it is. I call it, they don't get reckless with the facts.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, some of them don't.
Well, yeah.
You've got guys like Jack,
Well,
We're
Jack,
just talking about Jack.
Jack doesn't get reckless with the facts, but he'll tell you about the barometric pressure of the day, how many lactating fawns he saw, and
That's the doctor in him, I think.
oh, he is. But he's consistent. I've heard his world record brown bear story many, many, many times. I've heard him tell it at conventions. Always the same thing.
Yeah.
He never varies. But he's a great guy.
Yeah.
Good friend. We've hunted together I don't know how many days, but Tajikistan, Alaska, Alberta. He's a real deal.
Now, guys like you, guys like Jack Frost, that Chuck Adams, you could keep going down the list, legendary bow hunters, that to me is what makes the Pope and Young convention so special.
Yeah.
Because, and this is only my third convention as the marketing director for Pope and Young, but I remember when I first walked into a room and I'm like looking around, I'm like, holy cow, these are guys, I read their articles when I was a kid. Oh my goodness. And I'm looking around and then the room is just full of them. But not only is it full of them, and I've used Jack as an example a lot. Jack wants to hear your stories just as much as he wants to share his stories with you. And that's so cool.
It is.
You know, because I remember coming into my first convention as a staff member, I was only 24 years old. And I thought, I don't belong here. I mean, these are legendary bow hunters. And then I sit down with Jack at a dinner and he's asking me about my stories. And I'm like, because bow hunters are special in and of themselves is what it made me feel like. You know, I'm not special because of what I kill. I'm special because I'm a bow hunter.
Yep.
And that's what made me, that's what I love about Pope and Young. We're a family of bow hunters.
Absolutely. Everybody, for the most part, checks their ego at the door.
Yeah.
And we love to share stories. Jack and I have both done a lot of seminars at different bow hunting organizations. And after the seminar, usually people go to the bar and there's 8 or 10 bow hunters get around the table, and something that I came up with a number of years ago. Okay, let's everybody start to my right here. Let's tell about your most agonizing miss and keep it under 2 minutes. So you'd get a chance to talk, the next guy get a chance to talk, and we'd all tell stories. It was awesome. And it was, you know, just about your favorite hunt or whatever. But telling stories is what it's all about here.
Yeah, it really is. And that's what I just adore about this convention. But we're here to tell stories.
Ooh.
Because you are being awarded the brand new world record Mountain Caribou in Velvet.
Yeah.
Congratulations, by the way.
I was surprised. See, I shot that in 1990 with Ramhead Outfitters. Stan Simpson owned it at the time. And it's a long time ago.
35 years.
35 years. Can you imagine?
I wasn't
my
even
hair
alive.
was black.
I wasn't even alive 35 years ago, Tom.
Yeah, my hair was black back then. But anyway, a little story about that caribou. I was shooting a rest called a springy rest.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little curly thing that held the arrow. And I did this stalk on the caribou, and I got behind some brush, and they started feeding towards me. I went to knock an arrow, and my rest is all bent. I mean, it's twisted around like unbelievable. But I had been told by somebody, I don't recall who it was, to look down your string. I did this during practice. Look down your string and make a white mark from the center. You align the string with the center of the arrow and put a little white mark on the riser for your right and left. Then hold the bow sideways. The very top of the arrow, I put a little white mark on my riser. I'm behind the brush with a bent rest. I'm back there bending it, looking. The arrow's, it's crooked. So I'd bend the rest a little bit, and I'd get it lined up with that white dot. And then I got it lined up with this other little white dot. And the caribou are watching. I sat there for another 10 minutes. They started feeding. He came to 30 yards. And I drilled him, which is a lot of luck involved. But anyway, that's how I killed that very caribou.
Wow.
That's kind of a crazy story, but I've got a lot of crazy stories.
That's what we're here to hear.
Oh, yeah.
That's what we're here to hear. So when you heard about the introduction of the Velvet categories,
right?
So for those of you who are listening and don't know, Pope and Young 4 years ago, mm-hmm. Introduced Velvet only categories. So before there was no Velvet categories, they were in the hardhorn categories. And then for Boone and Crockett, you had to strip Velvet.
Right. Well, let me interrupt you a second.
Okay.
Back in 1990, for a short time, they had a Velvet category for caribou, but it was only in the book for, I think, 6 years.
Okay.
And they took it out. Then they ended up eliminating the velvet category. So I did have that Caribou. I've got a Pope and Young record book, 1999 record book. It's got that Caribou listed as a Pope and Young velvet Caribou.
Very cool.
Yeah. And then
Very
they stopped doing that. And then they just reintroduced, velvet mule deer, velvet elk, whatever. And I'm glad they did, because it's, a lot of people, they don't like to strip them.
Right. Understandably.
Yeah.
I've always thought velvet should, be more amplified because it's just more rare. I mean,
it's hard to keep the velvet in good
intact,
condition.
yeah.
That's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
You're in the mountains. A lot of times it's bleeding, and it's hard to keep it from bugs getting in.
You got to pack it out.
Yeah,
it's rubbing and getting
and then
beat
you got to
up.
ship it from Northwest Territories without getting the velvet ripped off.
Yeah.
So it's difficult.
So when they introduced, 5 years ago, when they said, hey, velvet categories, did you know in your mind, like, I've got the world record?
No, I had no idea.
So how'd you find that out? How'd that happen?
It's really strange. You know when it happened? When I found out it was a world record? Yesterday when I walked in that room.
Really?
Seriously. Yeah. I boxed this thing up, 3 or 4 months ago. Sent it to Bass Pro. They shipped it to Phoenix. It got scored. I had no idea. I thought I was maybe in number 3, 4, 5. I had no idea. I didn't even know it was in the top 10. I walk in the room yesterday, and I said, I wonder where my Caribou is, because the velvet's kind of messed up on it.
Yeah.
So I go, there's my Caribou over there. And I walk over and I look down and there it is, world record. I said, are you kidding me? But anyway, it scores, I think, 397 or something like that.
Wow.
But I'm sure a lot of guys have killed velvet caribou. Lots of guys bigger than that. But they either stripped it or they just haven't.
They don't know what they have.
Well, they haven't entered it. But I'll bet the next scoring program 2 years from now, it won't be the world record.
But for right now, you have the world record.
Right now, yeah. I'm kind of a little bit proud of it. Why?
He's number one. That's cool, man. So I want to say, is this your first world record? But how many world records do you have?
I believe it or not, it's kind of a long time ago. Jack Frost shot a brown bear. That was the world record. And he beat Fred Bear, who previously had the world record. That was, I think, in 1986 or 87. And then in 87, I think it went in the scoring period of 1989, I shot a stone sheep. Fred Bear had the world record.
Really?
I beat it. I had the world record just for 2 years. Somebody beat mine.
That doesn't matter. I would
it
always
was kind
brag.
of cool.
I would always brag. I beat
whatever.
Fred Bear.
Well, Jack Frost beat him the year before. And
I'd just say it ain't no big deal. I might have beat him. I might have not. But
anyway, I became a sheepaholic.
Really?
Oh, that's my favorite.
Out of all the big game sheep.
Yeah. Sheep it's the country and the challenge. And it's just.
What's your favorite kind of sheep?
I don't know. It's almost like somebody asking me, what's my favorite meal?
Sheep.
I love them all. Sheep it's good. I had a guide teach me, we have the little one burner stove where you do your freeze dried food on the mountain. He said, let's have some backstrap. Killed a ram it was up in Northwest Territories with Simpson. He got a little flat rock, just, set it on the one burner stove and heated that rock red hot. And this guy had a little foil with salt and pepper in it in his pack. He took some of that out. He sprinkled it on the rock with the backstrap. Oh, talk about good, especially after eating freeze-dried food for a week.
For a week, yeah. Anything tastes good at that point. Yeah.
But that sheep meat, it'll make a bulldog break his chain.
I always tell people, did you get to go out there and try the wild game cook-off?
I didn't.
Food?
No.
I was eating some of that food. It was Jim Willems. I was eating Jim's, and I said, Jim, let me tell you something. This food is so good that if I put this plate on top of my head, My tongue will beat my brains out trying to get to it.
Oh, I like that. That's good. That's good.
So when I want to take a big step back, because obviously when you've got, and I don't say this lightly, one of the legends of bow hunting, I would really truly put you in that category. I want to go back to the beginning. When did the bow hunting start for Tom?
I was a rifle hunter back in my first sheep was 1971 in Northwest Territories. I shot a doll sheep, and then I shot.
And how old were you at this point?
Well, I was born in 43, so whatever, 27 or something like that. But I shot a doll sheep in 71 and a stone sheep in 72, and then a bighorn in 76 in Alberta.
How many times have you completed the sheep slam?
So I do not have a sheep slam with a rifle.
Well, how many times period have you completed it?
I started bow hunting in 1983. I didn't kill a sheep the first hunt. Then the next year I hunted twice, didn't kill a sheep. And then in 1985, I killed a grand slam in 12 months.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was, I think, 26 days from Jack Frost. Jack was the first grand slam, and mine was 26 days later.
Wow.
In Alberta. And that pumpkinhead buddy of mine, Jack Frost, he knew I was hunting Alberta in November. He booked a desert sheep hunt
in October.
Can you imagine? And I'm not going to tell you how many shots it took for Jack to kill that desert sheep, but someday if you do a podcast, you ask him. He'll tell you.
I'm going to go ask him right now.
Oh, no. But anyway, we pick on each other a lot. I love Jack Frost. He's one of my favorite buddies.
He's one of the nicest guys ever.
He's awesome. We've hunted the Chicastan for Marco Polo. We've hunted all over the place.
You know, Jack, one time he put me in check. And it was a convention, so I was just exhausted, been working all day. And we went to a film festival. They had a film festival, and somebody said, hey, Jack doesn't do phones. Can you get him an Uber back to the hotel? Sure. Make sure he gets in an Uber with you. And I'm like, absolutely. So we get back to the hotel, and it's late. I'm tired, and I go to push the elevator button, and Jack keeps walking. And I'm like, where are you going, Jack? And he said, taking the stairs. I don't take an elevator. Got to stay in shape. Yeah. And I'm like, oh crap. I'm like, well, if Jack's doing it, I can't continue to get on this elevator. And so I have a rule now: take the stairs.
Oh yeah, we call it the Jack Frost rule.
Yeah,
my wife says we're walking up the stairs, no escalator.
Jack Frost.
I
like that.
That's no kidding. No,
I like that. Going back to favorite sheep, I would have to stay. And I've never hunted sheep, but stone sheep are just gorgeous animals.
Oh, beautiful.
I think, and just because of how pretty they are, I think that would be my favorite.
Yeah. I don't know. I think as far as looks, desert sheep are the least
appealing.
Yeah. But they're all beautiful. And then, seeing them fighting, and it's just, it's pretty awesome.
So
I think I don't know. I think I've been on 70 sheep or goat hunts.
70? How many successful?
Oh, I don't know. I've got a super slam, which is of sheep, called the Ophis Slam, and that's 12 species. I think I've got 13 species of sheep with a bow. And
so when you say sheep hunt, you're not just talking North America. You're talking.
I'm talking, yeah. Because I've got the 12 species of goats, and but mountain hunting, I call it mountain hunting. I think I've been on 70, and not all for myself. Some I videoed and went with friends.
Yeah,
but a story that I enjoy telling, and a lot of people might be interested in it. My very first hunt was in 1983. I bought a little bear archery bow. In 82, I shot a doe and a spike horn back home in upstate New York. Two of my buddies were going brown bear hunting in Alaska, rifle hunters. And they said, why don't you come with me? I said, I'm going to try to do it with a bow. So we fly into spike camp, and the guide and I set the tent up, and I said, I want to practice a little bit. You can't hunt the first day you fly. So
Right.
I went out in the creek bottom, built a little thing of sand, and second arrow, my bow just blows up. I had called a quadriflex. It was actually a split limb bow in 1983. So here I'm in camp, first day, 14-day hunt, broken bow. So I go in the tent, and I'm almost in tears. And the guide says, no problem. I got this custom-made rifle, 338. I shot a brown bear in 1972 with a rifle. I said, I'm going to do it with a bow. And he looked at me and said, you realize where you are? And I says, yeah, I do. But I say, I also know we have 14 days. So let's try to get a bow. It's your hunt. We walked 8 hours with hip boots on back to the base camp where there was an airplane. It's a Super Cub. On the way, I shot a Wolverine with the guide's rifle at 12 yards. I mean,
Wow.
But anyway, we get back, and the next day we had good weather. I flew to Port Hayden, made a phone call to New York to my cousin, who owns an archery shop. She called the car wash. I'm in the car wash business. I had a car wash friend in Anchorage. She called them and gave her the name of 2 archery shops, called the shop. They had a bow. My friend picked up the bow in Anchorage, brought it to the airport. Weens Airline had a flight to King Salmon. The very next day, I had a brand new bow on a carousel coming around in a box. And I'm not a mechanic as far as making a bow work. 2 bow hunters happened to be hanging out they were caribou hunters, real knowledgeable. Pat McCollum from Wasilla, Alaska. He helped set my bow up. We got it sighted in. Next day, flew back to camp. Following day, flew into spike camp. So I lost 5 days of a 14-day hunt. The very next day, I missed the brown bear at about 30 yards at noon. I was heartbroken. We come back to the same place. There was dead salmon all over, a little salmon stream. We're just before dark. Here comes a brown bear in to feed on the salmon. I drew on him, and it ran and stood right where I had missed it in the morning.
The day before.
And he stood up, and he looked at me, and I shot him, and I hit him really high, but I hit him right in the jugular, the throat. Killed the brown bear. My first actual day of the hunt with a brand new bow. But that's one of my crazy favorite stories.
So I got to ask you, you asked all them boys, you said, what's your worst miss? What's your worst miss?
I've had a bunch of them.
But there's one.
Well,
there's one.
One in Spain always haunted me. I was with a guide. They spotted this ibex that they claim was the world record. It was a southern ibex in Spain. They said this thing is huge. I did the great stalk with the guide and did a little sneak, and there's a real sharp ledge. And I looked over, and I could see the top of the horns. They're like 15 yards. This is a chip shot. So I drew the bow, and I stood up. And I had to lean way over because it was real steep. The ibex was right there, broadside, and I shot in my arrow about 3 feet in front of the bow, hit the rock. I didn't get.
Oh no!
Because when you shoot an arrow, the first 3 yards, it's like 5 inches under your sight. Anyway, I slammed the rock, and that was one of my favorite misses. But I've had lots of them. Matter of fact, my Grand Slam ram in Canmore, Alberta, in 1985, it was my 12th shot at a bighorn.
Wow.
Not that year. 83, I missed 3 or 4 shots. 84, I missed 3 or 4 shots. 85.
Hey, there's a company right over here. They sell targets. We'll get you one so you can practice.
I should practice more.
I will say
Chuck Adams saw me miss one. Chuck Adams was hunting.
No, he probably never let you live it down, did he?
I bet he laughed.
I bet he did too.
Look at this.
I bet he did too.
But anyway.
I was shooting with Chuck one time. I went on a hunt with Chuck a couple years ago in Oklahoma, and the day before we went out, I was just shooting, make sure everything's dialed in, and I hit just an inch or two below the X, and he says, "You didn't hit it."
Whoa!
I said, "Well, you're right. I did not hit the X." but it'll kill an animal. That's all I care about.
That's the main thing.
No, I will say this. I do. And I believe this is our first real conversation. But before we started recording, you were talking about not being a good shot.
I'm not.
And Jack Frost will tell you the same thing.
Oh, absolutely.
I remember one of the first words he ever said to me was, well, I'm not a good shot, so I got to get close.
That's right.
And I appreciate that. Now, we also live in a technology-driven world where dudes are shooting super accurate at 100 yards.
Oh, yeah.
And I might get some hate for this, but that's also taking out some of the art of getting close, stalking, learning the animals. And I'm not going to lie to anybody. I fell into that trap a few years ago. I shooting at 40, 50, 60 yards, and I'm like, this isn't. I want to get close. I want to get intimate. I want to have to earn this. Yeah. And so I put the compound down. I'm like, I'm gonna try this recurve thing out.
Sure.
And I had no idea where to start. And luckily, Jim Willems was coming through town, and I live not far from where he was from in Kansas, and so he was coming through town, and he says, "Well, I got a bow in the truck. I'd love to come by and teach you." And so we spent the afternoon, and I still was just like, "This is never going to happen for me." I mean, I'm missing the target completely at 12 yards, and but I worked at it, and Harv lives about 4 hours from me, and so I call Harv. I'm like, "Hey, can I come to your house? I need help." And he's like, "Sure." So he spent the afternoon practicing with me, and people always ask me, like, why did you switch to a recurve? And it's not a pride thing. It's not I want to look cool. I want to make it harder on myself. It was, I want to limit the range in which I can shoot because I want bow hunting to be an intimate thing. I want it to be challenging, and I want to have to get close. I want to have to. So with the advancements in technology, and I mean, obviously you've seen bows change tremendously.
Oh, bows and rangefinders. We used to have the dial thing. You had a split image. Half the time it was not even close to being accurate.
Yeah. So do you think the rangefinder was the biggest advancement in hunting technology?
One of them, absolutely, no question about it. And then carbon arrows, and there's all sorts of things. But here's something that a lot of people don't. Well, the guys that have been around a long time appreciate what Nathan Anderson has done.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think any other bow hunter will ever do what Nathan did. The North America 29 with a longbow.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother league.
Mm-hmm.
Longbow, recurve, compound. And Nathan did it with a longbow.
Yeah.
And is.
Do you still hunt with a recurve, or do you hunt with a compound?
Compound, yeah. I'm not that good a shot. Shoot. No way. No way.
There are a lot of great companies making a lot of great bows. Pretty much, if you go buy a new bow today, it's going to be a good shooting bow. However, very few bow companies are still single family owned. Even fewer bow companies are Christian owned, which is a very important value to me. And third, very few companies are really looking to push the needle in innovation. That is why I align myself with Prime. Prime, when I made the switch to Prime and I got my hands on this RVX 32 right here, I spent so much time with that bow. I put so many arrows through it. I took it on several different hunts in several different climates and put it just through about anything you can put a bow through. And it performed in every way that I needed it to. It shoots really well. It balances really well. Super high quality. The materials that go into it are great. And then in 2025 comes the form, which just goes to show you that Prime is really looking to move the needle in archery innovation, which is something that's important to me. So guys, that is why I align myself with Prime. I would highly encourage you to go to a Prime dealer and shoot the bows. I would highly encourage you to go to g5prime.com and check out their full lineup. Prime makes a phenomenal bow, but it's also a company that I can feel good about standing behind and supporting. So go check out Prime for your next bow. Okay, so walk me through Walk me through the challenges. I mean, you admit, hey, I'm not a great shot. So what does that mean for you when you go into a hunt? Like,
Well, you just got to. I don't work out at all. Never have. I don't think in my entire life.
Lord, I couldn't tell.
No, well, I don't think I've spent an hour in a gym. Seriously. I don't run. I don't lift weights. But I used to work hard physically, and then I hunted a lot. And I do not practice much with a bow. I don't particularly care just to shoot. But when it comes to, I call it mental toughness and skill level, and I listen to a lot of hunters. Jack's taught me things. We share ideas on stalks and what to do, what not to do. So we've learned a lot together. So I think I'm not bragging. I think I'm a reasonably good stalker. Mm-hmm. I know when to draw, when not to draw. I'm a lot more aggressive on sheep hunting than most people. I believe I don't like sitting and waiting for 2 days for that sheep to get in the exact right place, because tomorrow it might fog in for 2 days.
Yeah.
Or whatever. So I'm a little more aggressive than most hunters when it comes to moving, but it's worked for me.
Yeah.
It's worked well.
And worked well.
Yeah. No. And then I've been blessed with good health. I've got an artificial knee. That's something that we should tell people. If you're suffering with bad knees, get them fixed. If you got bad tires on your car, I call it maintenance. I go, but I've had an artificial knee for 17 years, and I've been on at least 10 sheep or goat hunts since my artificial knee, and don't even know it's there. But anyway, I don't know how long we're going to talk.
As long as you want.
But I've got a few things that you might want to edit out, but it's humor.
I don't edit out anything.
Well, I've done a lot of hunting seminars. I've done some with Jim Shockey, and Jack and I've done probably 6 or 8 or more together and stuff like that. And I love question and answer. People ask you questions about whatever. And somebody in the audience, it was at the Wild Sheep Show, and there was, not a lot of people in the room, maybe 100, and a few women, and anyway, in the room, and people say, "Why did you stop rifle hunting and start bow hunting?" And I mentioned about Dave Simpson. I said, my friend in Alberta, Dave Simpson, told me about this Canmore, Alberta archery only area. Matter of fact, that's my favorite place to hunt in the world, is bighorn sheep in Canmore, Alberta, with the Simpsons. Anyway, I'm at the podium, and I don't know what made me say it. They said, so that's when you started bow hunting. I said, yeah. I said, it was 1973 was my first bow hunt. And I said it just changed my life. The first time I bow hunted, I knew I was going to do it again and again. I said, it's sort of like masturbating. I said, and everybody could relate to it. First time I did it, I knew I was going to do it again and again. You're getting red. I'm sorry. Maybe I shouldn't have said. We can edit this out.
No.
But anyway, So anyway, I've told that story quite a few times. But that was at a seminar in the Wild Sheep Show.
How many people are in this room?
100. And about 10 women, and every one of them understood. Never mind. But anyway, people say, again, about bow hunting, you got to get close. You mentioned about the excitement of, I call it getting amongst them.
Getting in amongst them, yeah.
And a lot of these rifle hunters got these rifles now that shoot 900 yards. I shot a sheep at 900 yards with my whatever rifle. And they, it's not a hunt. It's more of a, target practice or something.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Well,
see,
and
with
it's
bow hunting, you get a lot of foreplay.
yeah.
All right, you get, you stalk, you mess up, and then if you shoot something and you make a good shot, and that animal runs out there and tips over, and you got him. I have a bowgasm.
That's a good one.
I invented that word. My buddies, you do. I love,
Yeah.
you can sit in a tree stand and have a bowgasm.
Fall out of your tree almost.
Oh, it's awesome.
Now, going back to the 900-yard sheep thing, at some point, you are doing nothing more than minimizing that animal's life to a target, not an animal. I don't care if you can shoot 900.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that can happen in 900 yards.
Oh, yeah. No, I know. But guys do it, and they're proud of it. And on the other hand, who am I to say? I don't know.
Well,
it's all different. But you don't get the
I remember I was
thrill. I don't. Anyway.
I heard this one guy talking. We were at ATA, the Archery Trade Association. He said he was telling the story of shooting a deer at 110 yards, and somebody said, "Why did you shoot it that far?" He said, "I couldn't get any closer." He said, "Then you suck at hunting."
Yeah.
She might be a good shot, but you're a terrible hunter. And that guy was like, well, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You can't get within 110 yards of a deer.
Yeah.
How long did you try?"
Yeah,
Right? And I was like, there's a pretty good point there.
Yeah.
Some guys take pride in their shooting, but they're terrible hunters.
Yeah.
Some guys are phenomenal hunters, terrible shooters.
Yep. Oh, there's no doubt about it. And it's all like what you like to do. I mean, in fishing, there's guys that want to use strictly a dry fly for trout. I grew up putting a little worm on it or a minnow. And
where did you grow up at?
Upstate New York.
Okay.
Yeah, I live about 30 miles from Vermont.
Okay.
And I grew up there and, always fished and hunted. But if you do it ethically, legally, have at it.
Yeah, it's your tag.
I don't care. I mean, if a guy wants to shoot a crossbow, I mean, I'm having some serious shoulder trouble right now. I drew area 9 in Arizona this year.
Oh, wow.
It only took me 26 years, but I've got a sheep tag that's really, I'm not a sheep, but a elk tag. It's really good. So it's possible if I can't burn, I'm not going to burn the tag. So if I have to shoot a crossbow, I'm going to shoot one. I'm going to hunt and try to get as close as I can. But just go hunting.
You should use a blowgun. That'd be cool.
That'd be cool. I haven't done that. No.
All right. So you told me your worst miss. And I love asking world record holders this because it's usually not the world record. What's been the one trophy, like the one that's meant the most?
Well, I've got kind of 2 that meant the most.
Stand out.
Yeah, that really stand out. One was I hunted 10 days in Northwest Territories in 1987. Never got a shot. Never saw a really big ram. I'd already killed 2 dolls and I wanted to shoot a bigger one. Went home and got a phone call in September. Say, hey, if you can get up here, we've got a ram spotted that's really super. And if you want to come up, you can hunt the last week with my brother, Flint Simpson, who's one of my favorite buddies. He says, come on up, try to chase this sheep. He says, we're calling him the Twister. So I went up there, and sure enough, we found him the very first day we got up. We weren't even in camp. We were just getting ready to find our little place to put the tent, and there was the sheep that ran off. And I followed him for 4 days and shot him at 21 yards straight down over a cliff. And doesn't score well, but it's the most beautiful sheep I've ever killed. It's my favorite number 1 animal.
That's what I love, because 9 times out of 10, you talk to guys and they've got, hundreds of animals in the books. They've got world records. And they talk about the one that means the most, and they're like, it's not that big.
No.
But it meant the most.
Yep. Matter of fact, the stone sheep I mentioned was the world record. I think it scores 163 something. The doll that we call the Twister, if you looked at it, you could ask 10 sheep hunters. show this one that scores 163, and then the one, my favorite one, scores 152. Which one would you shoot? Every time they would say the 152 because it's just a classic
curl.
Just an
classic
awesome
pretty sheep, yeah.
Yeah.
What's the other one? You said two stood out, but that was only one of them.
Well, shot-wise, I was hunting in Wrangell Mountains for Doll sheep, and I was the first bow hunter that year, and the guy who guided me was the brother-in-law of the outfitter, and he gets to guide the first hunter, and he knew about me being a sheepaholic, and he wanted to guide me. So they found this from the air. They found this really big ram. They thought it might have been the world record. But anyway, we did a stalk on it. It was by a glacier, and there was no way of getting near it where it was. And they claimed the weather was going to change. And so anyway, we did this stalk, and I got 78 yards. And this was before the rangefinder that has the angle.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a thing in my pocket like a compass. It's called a chronometer.
Yeah.
It gives you the angle you're holding it. I had a little chart, 20 to 80 yards. It said if it's 40-degree angle and it's 80 yards, you shoot it at 47 or whatever. Mm-hmm. They had a little chart. So this is low tech back in, I don't know what year it was, a long time ago. I had a straight line rangefinder. It was 78 yards. So I got my little chart out. I got that little thing, and it said, shoot it for 60. So I waited and waited, and the sheep got perfectly broadside and took my time. And as far as a good shot, it's the best shot I ever made.
Best shot ever.
I mean, it just drilled it.
Just watching.
And the guide couldn't believe it. You could just see that arrow go down. I mean, it was pretty awesome. But those are the two most memorable good shots.
Yeah.
That
now, as far as
but there was my guide said, "Oh my gosh, he's holding a sheep." He says, "I apologize." He said, "This is not near as big as I thought it was." He's apologized to me. I said, "Hey, you don't need to apologize. That's an awesome ram, and I'm happy."
Yeah.
So score isn't everything.
Yeah. And that's what, I appreciate that so much about again, the legends of bow hunting. Because everybody in the world, no, I shouldn't say everybody outside of Pope and Young thinks that Pope and Young only cares about the biggest and best.
Yeah.
They think we're only a record book. They think we're only, a pecker swinging contest of who can kill the biggest animals and who's in the book more and who's got more animals. And then you have a real conversation and you talk with people. And I asked Jack one time, I said, "So what's the best trophy you've ever shot?" And he said, "The doe I shot last week at home because it was the most recent one." And I said, "Fair enough." But people think that we only care about the biggest and best. And it couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah.
Couldn't be. Now, before we go, and I could ask you questions all day long. And I do have questions all day long. However, I know you want to go hang out with your buddies, and we got to get ready for an auction here in just a little bit. But what's been the single craziest story that's ever happened to you in the field?
One of my favorite stories is sitting in a hunting polar bears. I've been on 6 polar bear hunts, 2 for myself, and then I've videoed 4 other. I love them. And there was a man, Nathaniel Kulikock in Resolute, awesome Inuit man, invited me to go on a whale hunt with him for Norwell.
Wow.
And
do you ever look at yourself on the adventures you're in and just think, how did I get here?
I've been so blessed.
What am I doing here?
I mean, just crazy, very, very fortunate. But one of the things that I have to credit myself with is, I call it make something happen. I talked to him about this whale hunt. They shoot him with a rifle. And I've been told you can take a 30-06, put your hand down there a foot below the surface, catch the bullet in your hand. Don't try that with an arrow. So anyway, I found out, and I've never tried that, but that's what I've been told. But I know arrow in the water really penetrates incredible. And anyway, I talked to Nathaniel about this whale thing, and I found out that they wound a lot of whales, shoot a lot of them. They don't recover them and whatever. And I come up with this idea. I said, I'll supply the equipment. It's illegal for me to shoot one of these things.
Because you're non-resident.
Their village, I think, had a permit for 40 whales.
Okay.
They eat the muktuk. It's a big deal for them.
Yeah.
I says, I'll bring the archery equipment up.
If you'll
shoot it with a harpoon arrow hooked to a fishing rod. I had a spinning rod with, a couple 100 yards of line on it, the drag set loose. We had the harpoon arrow hooked to the fishing rod. Followed the whale. And, it's a mammal. It's got a surface. Mm-hmm. And it was in a bay, so it was not far from shore. And this whale kept surfacing, and I had him on the end of the spinning rod. He surfaced right alongside the boat. Shot it with a big, heavy, super nasty broadhead, 4-blade. Didn't fly worth a hoop, but it only had to fly about 4 yards.
Yeah.
So anyway, he shot this whale with the bow, and it was one of the most incredible adventures. And I got
now. How much does this weigh? How much does this weigh?
The whale, he said about 2,000 pounds. I don't know.
Oh,
it's 17 feet long. It's got the ivory. I think the ivory was 7 foot 2 inches. The ivory coming out of their head. It's a corkscrew, and but it was an awesome experience.
Are you the only person in history to have done this?
I didn't do it. Don't be saying that.
Okay, you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
It's illegal.
You know what I mean.
It's legal for him. I just supplied him.
You know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
Are you guys the first group?
As far as I know, I've never heard of anybody else doing it.
I've never heard anybody say, let's go bow hunt narwhals.
No, it was awesome. Now,
that is really cool.
I went back up with him one time, and Jack Frost's daughter was with me. A whole bunch of hunters went muskox hunting with the same guy. There was a bowhead whale skull that was probably, who knows, several hundred years old, laying up near this old abandoned little area where the Inuits live. And it had a blowhole in the skull. The thing was about this tall, the skull. And right above the blowhole was a broken hole about the size of your fist. He says that's where that whale was killed by a spear. He says my ancestors would go out with a kayak, sealskin kayak, he said, get on that whale and ride the kayak next to the whale and stab it through the skull and kill it. That's what they use. Feed their dogs. They eat whale oil for their lamp, for their heat, in their igloo. And this was up in a place called, it's out of Resolute Bay. I can't think of the name of the bay we were in, but it's the same place where we hunted the Norwell. But this Inuit man, he told me stories that were incredible.
That is crazy.
But they butchered this Norwell, and they let me ship the ivory to Alberta. It's hanging in Alberta at a friend's house. I got all the paperwork for it. I couldn't take it into America. You're not allowed to bring that into America. But anyway, it's one of my wildest adventures.
For good reason.
And I ate the muktuk.
How
in camp.
How does an arrow penetrate in a narwhal?
Oh, he shot it 4 times. Complete passer. Heart in this was big. One arrow hit 4-blade right through the heart.
So pass through from top to bottom, or through it?
Well, it was
diagonal.
Diagonal. Yeah, right.
Wow.
And it's only a 3-yard shot or 5.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right next to the boat. But we had these really super sharp 4-bladed arrows that didn't fly worth a hoot on a long shot, but they sure cut a lot of.
When you said let's do arrows, was there any pushback? Was he like, I don't know about this?
Well, no, he questioned me a lot, and I said, there's no history on this. So I don't know. I don't know what to. He
said, I'd be questioning me too.
Yeah, no, it was. I had no idea, but He didn't either, but he was a really good guy, super honest gentleman. He was just, I've hunted polar bear with him 4 times without, videoing hunts, but just a super duper duper man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tom, thank you so much for coming on. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. You've always been on my list of I need to nail him down. But there's also, I have a particular list of people where I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to do this podcast over the phone. This has to be done in person. And it's the Jack Frosts and the Harv Ebers and yourself and just that group of just Gene Hopkins, the group of legendary bow hunters that I've always wanted it to be a in-person podcast. Guys, if you like to build arrows or work on your bows at home, you have to know about a little website called papertuner.com. I have a little studio here, a little space here where I work on all my bows. And big paper tuners just used to take up all the space. You couldn't hang them anywhere nice and neat. They took up a lot of floor space. And then I come across papertuner.com. What you get from papertuner.com is an all-in-one solution to paper tune your bows. They come with all the magnetic strings, all the clips you need. You can hang it up in a matter of seconds, take it down in a matter of seconds, hang it on the wall. It is a phenomenal way to paper tune your bows. However, they also have incredible arrow spinners. They have arrow stands. If you don't have a place to hang your paper tuner, they even make tripod mounts so you can mount it on just a regular old tripod. Guys, papertuner.com is a phenomenal solution for little shops that just don't have a lot of space for a big old paper tuner. Guys, go check them out, papertuner.com. I promise you'll be glad you did.